the smell of grass and leather. There were days when we'd play too. We'd cross the lines when the sun would shine and make our dreams come true. I had a glove on my hand and a girl in the stands. She stole my heart like a hit and run. It seems the world was so much simpler back then. We was just out there for fun. I pray for someone to hold your hand, and baseball in the summer, someone to walk with you when this world grows cold. Baseball in the summer, baseball in the summer.
Welcome to a Brock v. Mac Legendary Rivals podcast, and we are doing a Maccast today over international borders. Adam Duskocy of the McMaster Fighting Marauders, as I like to call them, when they would annoy me, is joining us. And Adam, first off, thanks for doing this. Let's get that out of the way. I know that you're busy and you got a lot on the go, but why don't you just start with, how you're doing today and hopefully avoiding the raindrops and letting everyone know where you're at and what you're up to.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mike. And super pumped to be a part of this. I've been, keeping tabs on it as you've launched this, and hearing some of the boys and the old coaches and the stories as they come through is certainly brings up a lot of memories of a lot of great times and absolutely some of the best years of my life, which is great. So as you mentioned, I'm down in the U.S. now. I moved to the U.S. in 2002, pretty much right when I finished school. I work in environmental consulting and work in mergers and acquisitions with kind of a strategy firm down in the U.S. So actually today I find myself sitting in Fargo, North Dakota, chasing my son's hockey team across country and sitting in a hotel as they're competing in the national championship tournament out in Fargo. So not a lot of rain here in Fargo. They still got some snow on the ground a little bit, but great to make some time and have an opportunity here.
I would ask, what are your impressions of Fargo? I think it resonates for everybody, and there's visions of wood chippers in Minnesota, but what is Fargo, North Dakota like? And we all get to travel to some pretty cool places with our kids, following their athletic endeavors, which are much more widespread than ours would be.
100%. I don't know if I'd throw Fargo in the one of the most exciting places I've been to, but it's it's got some pretty pretty neat spots being bars and little local restaurants, and there's certainly a little economy here, but it's I spend my time in the Northeast. I live in Connecticut with my family, so we're used to the skyscrapers and lights and sounds and whistles of New York City and Boston, those type of things. So Fargo's a little bit different in that I don't think there's a building here over 3 stories high, and it's we're kind of out in the middle of the plains, but neat spot anyway, and seeing a lot of familiar faces from the hockey community as well. So making the most of it.
Well, we both know this to be true, that somewhere in a dive bar in Fargo, North Dakota, there'll be a picture of Bill Newton raising a glass. So, Adam, why don't we start with where you grew up and your life before McMaster? Where were you raised, and how did you develop a love for sports in that, specifically baseball in that time?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in a extremely small town called Lucan, Ontario, which is just north of London, Ontario. Probably a easier spot to find on the map. So small town, 1,500, maybe 2,000 people at the time. Family, parents, 3 brothers and sisters. Complete sports kind of nut family. We had, everybody played sports. My parents were both teachers, so my dad would be working, my mom would be running us around and kind of holding the fort down at home. So we yeah, tons and tons of hockey. I'll probably get into that later. I can absolutely say my first passion and favorite sport in the world was hockey. And, I got this bug from baseball from my father who, had played a lot of baseball and had played on the local, like, kind of senior teams and what have you growing up. And so, you spent a lot of time in the hockey rink and, the summers kind of playing catch and playing baseball with my brother, my dad. And, there was a couple teams in town, but, ultimately the baseball team folded and, I had to move up to this other smaller town or similar sized town, Exeter, up the road, up Highway 4, where played a little bit of baseball in the summers in Exeter before, hitting high school and moving into the, kind of the London, city leagues and what have you. But I'd say a pretty great childhood. Like we're just, bombing around, small town, riding bikes everywhere, going out when the street lights, are staying out until the street lights come on and tearing up the neighborhood. And, we make our BMX ramps and jumps and some dirt bikes in the summer and those type of things. Just really probably what you'd expect in kind of an unstructured but awesome youth in a small town. So
It's funny. I've been to Lucan. I lived in London for 5 years, so
yeah,
I definitely got my start in media working for London's Best Rock FM 96 and
yeah,
Hawk
yeah.
103.9. So, and playing up in Exeter, I would have been just tempted to pack it in and go to Grand Bend or sit on the beach a lot,
100%.
right? So
Exactly. That describes my summer practices and probably 8th and ninth grade. The last 2 years I played there, it would be drop off Saturday morning. You hit the diamond, and then somebody would be taking a carload out to Grand Bend. So we spent a lot of time non baseball time hanging out in Grand Bend for sure.
it's not much of a choice when your choice is sweaty teammates or girls in bikinis. It's
Absolutely.
so that's London is in Lucan, particularly interesting area. And so you're mostly a hockey guy. What position were you playing in hockey?
I ended up playing a defense and when I played junior, played in some of the lower level junior leagues, but played forward, played defense, but and ended up playing defense towards the end of my hockey before I hung up the skates and moved on to McMaster to take in all the excitement that came my way with the baseball team, which was great.
So obviously, you've got siblings and it's probably pretty competitive, I would suspect, it always
Absolutely,
is.
yeah.
Were they big influences in just keeping you grounded and probably getting you used to being on a team and taking the needling and all that stuff that goes with teammates?
Yeah, it's yeah, exactly. I guess you could say, with two sisters and a younger brother, we kind of had our own little team in the house, and both my sisters were massively into sports. My oldest sister played lacrosse ended up playing lacrosse at Guelph. My next oldest sister played basketball at Waterloo, and of course, I ended up baseball at McMaster, and my brother was spent a bunch of time playing baseball and hockey as well. So it's yeah, definitely a lot of sports and driveway basketball and really just kind of probably cheering each other on, but kind of keeping tabs and of course the carpool and schedule, so you end up getting pretty pretty acclimated to what everybody's doing and how their practices are going and their teams are going. So very much sports was a focal point of our house.
That's super cool. Now, I mean, obviously a heavily varsity invested family at a certain point.
Mm.
So as you get a little closer, like, were you going to high school in London or were you going to
Yeah.
school in Lucan?
Yeah. So I went to John Paul II High School in London. So I was yeah, taking the bus in, kind of from a sports setting, played, played. I say played loosely. I was on each team, or signed up for each team in ninth grade, and hung out on the sidelines of football and basketball, and kind of tried everything. And we did not have baseball at high school, so it was I spent my summers during high school playing for the London Tecumseh organization, which was a blast, a lot of success, a lot of great people along the way. But then during high school, really, played hockey and ended up on playing tennis and badminton of all sports you can imagine. That was kind of picked those up with a couple buddies and had some fun with it. But without having baseball and most of the year being focused around hockey, we just kind of had to kill some time waiting for my sisters for their basketball practice. So I ended up picking up a couple of fun sports to play.
I can't imagine someone with your size playing badminton. That must have just been horrendously
It was fun.
intimidating, I think.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
So clearly, you're going to school and going to high school in a city that's got, one of Canada's most famous universities in it, the University of Western Ontario. Mm-hmm. Was it one of the three schools you wanted to attend, or what schools did you select when you were getting down to, okay, it's time for me to pick a university here?
Yeah, it's I applied to McMaster, of course, Guelph, and UWO. So it was, my mindset, I think, was, I was pretty excited to move away, like to get out of the house. I'd seen my sisters move on. My oldest sister was, loving life at Guelph, and I was seeing my other sister Laura. She was, really enjoying her time, and you get some opportunity to go down and visit and see what campus living looks like at Guelph and Waterloo, and then you go back to your street in Lucan at your parents' house, and you're like, I think there's something out there for me. So, so really, those were the schools, but I was pretty, pretty determined to move out and kind of enjoy that aspect of university.
You probably do your own thing too. Like I think Guelph
100%.
would have been hard when your sister's already there, and
that's right.
It isn't. She's not really living the wallpaper kind of a life. She's doing pretty well at Guelph, so
That's
just
right.
to find your own spot in the sun, right? So
exactly.
And McMaster, do you remember when you toured it for the first time, and or did you, or you just?
I didn't. No, I didn't. It's funny. I've got of course a family now, and I've got my two oldest are in university, or I guess my second is enrolling or has just accepted university, and we've done all the tours and checked out different schools. And I remember telling Megan that I said, I've never when I went to McMaster, I didn't even step foot until the first day. It was just seems great, and I don't know if it was a different time then, or maybe I was behind the scenes and or behind the times and didn't no tours, no anything, just kind of showed up day one, and that was
there was no website. Like people can't relate to this, but we didn't even have pictures. You just had those like those pamphlets that they would send, or an information package, right? And so that's interesting. So we'll talk about that in terms of what your first day on campus was like. Did you know there was a baseball team at Mac?
I did, and I wanna say, and it's we're going back years, but I want to say there was some conversation about it, or I knew about it going in, or after I had applied and got accepted, I was kind of maybe somehow sort of probably wasn't finding it on the internet or the web page that you would nowadays, but somehow I knew the baseball team was there and existed, and it was so when I was going there, I was I knew I was going to be going out for the baseball team, and I can't remember if maybe I talked to Donnie or somebody ahead of time, or it's really hazy going back that long, but it was I did know when I was going to school I had brought my baseball equipment, getting knowing there was tryouts or this team there as well, so certainly was aware. Yeah.
So what? And your first year was when?
97.
Oh my! So you joined right at the you hopped on the rocket ship just as it was 100%. Launching. Eh?
Couldn't have been a luckier guy, I can tell you that. Yeah.
So what position were you playing, and how did you prep? If you're going to play, and there's a baseball team, how did you prep that summer prior to going to Mac?
Yeah, it was just we had a at the time, like I said, at the time I was playing for this organization, London Tecumseh, and we had a great team. There was another team forming at the time called the London Badgers, that was a little bit more competitive, a little bit, I think they played a tougher schedule. I can't really recall on some of the kids had moved over to this Badgers team that I knew, and I just stuck it out with Tecumseh had a lot of friends and a lot of fun on it, and so it was really just kind of probably focusing in on. I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't really have, like I said, I spent a lot of my time focused on hockey and training for hockey, and every small town Canada's Ontario's kid's dream. I'm going to play in the NHL someday, and you realize you're not at some point, and but that mentality of just I need to start focusing a little bit more, and I need to really, really hone in on this. So I remember that year really spending a lot of time in the bullpen. I was a pitcher, played first base. So just really focusing on those things that I knew I was getting by with, was always kind of a bigger, stronger guy, stronger kid. So, as I'm sure we'll talk later, I the worst form, the worst mechanics of a pitcher, the worst, I think I probably drove Hank Romanowski insane trying to fix my mechanics. And I think he just gave up on me. He's like, just do whatever you're doing. But so I tried to focus on those little finer details that I didn't know what I needed. I didn't know what it was going to be like, but I knew I was getting into something that was probably far more than I'd ever experienced. So it was really just, hey, I better focus on baseball.
Yeah, London's it's organized a little bit strangely, right? They have the
Yep.
IBL, and
Yep.
the Badgers program was a Mike Lumley creation.
Yep. That's right.
But there's a bit of a void, given that they've got the great ballpark. So
Mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
pitched a lot of games in Labatt Park and loved it.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Yep.
And like if that's the expectation of what the parks look like, which they're not. Clearly, when you go to Guelph and you go,
That's
like
right.
this,
That's right.
this is an IBL stadium.
Yeah. That's
give
right.
me
Yeah.
give me
Yeah.
London or St. Catharines or Burnaby
Mm-hmm.
Harbor pretty quick.
That's right. Yep. Yep.
So and obviously, for school, you're probably working in the summer and you've got a lot of things going on.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Do you remember what residence did you end up with, and were you living in res? And
Yeah. Yeah.
so that must have been surprising because you've got you've seen it with your sisters, but every university has its own identity when it comes to residence.
100%. Yeah. 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 It was yeah. It was awesome. It was so I applied for and I don't know if you applied to specific residence, but I got into McKay Hall anyway, was my residence, which was awesome. Like I ended up living there 2 years, and it was it's a typical residence at any university. I'm sure everybody says it was awesome, but we had it was one of the smaller residences I think on campus. We had a couple big high rise buildings, and kind of the bigger thousands of people live there. And McKay was kind of this I don't know, 4 or 5 story kind of residence, and kind of spread out, and a mix of kind of first year, second year students. And yeah, it was awesome. Met a million great friends, and had a blast at the basement parties, and the different concoctions that were served up at the bar, and the of course all of the you mentioned earlier about kind of the impression when you first arrived on campus. And I remember pulling in, and it was we had all those blue bins in the back of my parents' car, and all these people came out, grabbed the blue bins. It was up in room 410 where I lived that first year, within 2 seconds. And it was just kind of you went from this unknowing quietness in this drive from Lucan to Hamilton, and suddenly you're immersed in this this party basically. And it was awesome.
Yeah, it seems like a good environment, especially for you coming from hockey, so sports backgrounds. There's always
Correct.
those elements in the mix. And
Yep.
what were you taking in terms of your courses?
Yeah, so I went in and I applied to the geology and physics program. So I was going to do a kind of a double major in geology and physics, and was my probably the tipping point. How did I decide on McMaster? I knew McMaster had a pretty strong geophysical laboratory, so yeah, applied into that program, and got accepted into the program. And I think within the first year they dropped the program, so I kind of had to kind of had to reshuffle. There was there was like a professional certification, like a professional geologist or geoscientist, as they called it in Ontario, certification that was coming into play right around when I was starting school. So they, kind of reconfigured the program and the needs, and ended up still, doing some work in the geophysics lab at the end of my time at McMaster, and getting a solid degree kind of surrounding, what I had set out to do in '97, but just a little bit packaged a little bit different, we'll say.
Yeah, that's got to be a little bit shocking, right? It's just kind of like, okay, I came here for this program, and boom, it's gone.
Yeah, that's right. So
Here we can
yeah,
offer up in its place. You can,
right,
go
right,
to. I mean, McMaster very solid academics, and
100%. Yeah,
so it's not like your options are going to be. We make fun of the Brock. School's come a long way since we attended
sure.
it, but at the time there was a rec and leisure course that they were just launching, and they've gone down this innovation path, which is great because
Yeah,
30 years later, there's sports management, first school in the country to have a sports management degree, and they've got one that's tied now to the wine industry. So they do some things that are kind of specific,
yeah,
but at the time, there was always, kind of like that track that just seemed like a real one big bird course, and you were going to end up
sure.
with a bird degree, right? So, you know, um, do you remember your first practice? Like, did they like you land, you're in the great res, probably a
Yeah,
bunch of parties during Frosh Week.
yeah.
But do you remember your first practice and
I
first interactions with the coaches?
I do. I kind of remember the whole kind of scene around it, I guess, more than the
Okay.
actual practice. I remember knowing I needed to be at this practice at this I think it was called Alexander Mackenzie or something park, this park, Alexander Park maybe, that we always practiced at. And I didn't know where it was. I had absolutely no idea where it was. And it's not like today where you just, pop it up on your phone and, you're following. Like you got to really kind of figure out where things are, right? Like, the struggle was real, right? And so trying to orientate myself on campus, where I need to go, how I need to walk, from campus to this other side of town, down these, residential roads to this park that was in some neighborhood. Like, yeah, it's so it sounds funny. I'm sure my kids will listen to this and laugh, and it should be simple. And it was the thing back then. You had to figure it out. So I remember walking across campus, and I ran into a Darren Kudzia, these two guys, Dave Kudzia and uh David Dare. I forget his first name right now. Anyway, so Darren Kudzia. So I run into these two guys who are kind of bumbling along across campus, and I remember I'm carrying my baseball bag. I see them carrying baseball bags. So they must be going to this baseball practice, of course, right? Like what, who else? So kind of latched on with those guys. Jason Adair. So latched on with Kudzi and Adair, and introduced myself, and those two guys were from the Kitchener area, and we just kind of navigated our way over to the park. We're at this practice, and I just remember the feeling of, oh wow, this is going to be something. Like, with seeing players there, seeing people, you know into baseball is the way I would describe it. Like, this is, this is something I haven't really experienced, frankly, probably in my life to this time period, where there wasn't a lot of people that were growing up in Lucan and Exeter, and maybe even Tecumseh when I was playing, where their primary sport they were training for day in and day out was baseball. Everybody played baseball. Everybody, had a position and worked at it, but I remember that getting to that first practice, and I didn't know the players' names, I didn't know who they were, but I remember having this feeling of like, wow, this is something I haven't experienced. And so practice would have went on. Not exactly sure what I did. I probably just tried to not look out of place, but I do remember after practice, a group of guys was going to this bar called the Thirsty Camel, and it was, does anybody want to go to the Thirsty Camel? And I remember, I'm pretty sure it was Newton. I remember there was a guy named Jeff Mariani, and I remember him being there, and a couple other guys, and I just didn't know the names at the time, of who these guys were, but I remember, you know leaving the practice, going to this place called the Thirsty Camel, which was awesome because it was a laundromat slash bar, as you only find in university towns, right? And sitting there and having a bunch of pops and beers, and walking back, just really thinking like, wow, this is something I need to be doing. This is like, just really had that feeling of, I hope this is something for me, and I, get onto this team and do it, because it just seemed like didn't know exactly what it was going to be, but this experience, was going to be awesome.
I mean, it's great. I mean, I think anything named the Thirsty Camel sounds
Yeah,
perfect.
exactly. Yeah.
And laundromat bar is. I don't know whether that's a university thing or whether that's a Hamilton thing. Truthfully.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So that's a good way. I assume that takes the edge off, and you're not feeling super nervous.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember your first conversation with Coach Graves or Henry more so? I think is the first line of defense there.
No, I think I think it was just kind of at practice talking about kind of games, expectations. Like I said, I was pretty overwhelmed. Like, it was like, like I said, this is the big very big deal, on what's going on here. And so kind of listening, talking about, what I do, positions I play, this and that. The the first conversation that probably really sticks out to me is we practiced, I guess it was a tryout in some sense, but we ended up having this game. So there was a invite or a list or whatever it might have been, but you were invited to play in this game, and we were going to play this team from Hamilton. And so we go to this game, go up there, and it's really obviously part of the process, and they want to see what kids do, and where they're going to slot in. So I remember my dad came up, and we're playing at some, I can't even remember what park we were playing at. It definitely wasn't the stadium. It was some park in Hamilton someplace. And kind of going through the lineups. Like I said, I was pitching, playing first base, and um get up to an at bat. So I go up to the plate. Admittedly, I never was like, I was never going to be a 400 hitter, never going to be a 500 hitter. If I was lucky enough to come across a really good pitcher that could hit my bat with their pitch, I was going to be able to launch it. That's how I would describe my hitting. And so I go up for this first at bat, and I'm just, I am gonna swing for the fences. Like, of course, right? Like, that's I am. So so I get first pitch of my entire McMaster career, tryout career opportunity. This pitcher was, great enough to hit my bat as it was coming through, and I crushed this ball, and it was, way over the fence, bombed it, you know, trot, trotting around the bases. Come in, and it was Newton or Donnie or somebody. It was like, just, I imagine some sort of, hopefully, and maybe this is just how I remember it, but maybe some sort of light went off with them. We're like, holy shit, we got this basically this unknown kid from Lucan, Ontario. He's a big kid, and he is crushing baseballs like that. I in some respect, I probably one of the tipping points for them to take me on the team. Okay. So
Yeah.
so I remember having this conversation with them, and I remember after the game getting in the car with my dad, and my dad just laughing. And he's basically saying, and not so many words, he's like, "Boy, are you in trouble?" Because he goes, "As soon as they start figuring out you can't hit worth a shit, you're gonna have a real big hill to climb, eh? Like, it's just, that would be, I would have, 50 strikeouts and 30 home runs and 80 at bats type thing, and so yeah, so that was, I just remember that first interaction, and it was just kind of a funny story. And then just really, for Hanker is probably just the relentless, pounding of baseballs in the just, the infields that we ran during practice. And all the names, and Lunny, and Scotty Ralph and Reeson, and um everybody else that was playing infield, Jeff Akett, Scotty Hughes, who came into school same year I did. And I just remember catching balls over at first base, and my hand would be just bruised by the end of practice from just just pounding ground balls and just all those throws coming across. And these guys are throwing the ball across the field at 80, 90 miles an hour, and there's no arc on the ball at this level. This is these are missiles coming in, and I'm catching these. And so just the intensity and the the stark contrast, I guess, of the intensity and seriousness of the team in the ball field, and the way this group of just incredible players was approaching the game was just really that feeling that stood out to me for those first few weeks.
Yeah, you guys were constructed so differently from the Brock teams, where there was a hard line between pitcher and player. For the most part, they occasionally would have. In '95, we had a closer who played shortstop, so he would pitch the last inning, and he was hard to handle. And then occasionally in subsequent years, they would use an Andy Tinish to pitch an inning here or there. But other than that, they carried a pitching staff that was just pitchers. And you guys were much more of like a Rubik's Cube. You had players that would play positions and then pitch and all that kind of stuff. So did you find that there was did you adopt a different personality or different mentality when you were pitching versus playing in the field?
Yeah, it's I love the challenge of pitching. Like what drew me to being a pitcher in the first place was just the challenge of what that means to hold the ball in your hand. And you need you're playing obviously an integral part, and you need to do something, whatever that is, that pitch that's needed, that that location to place that pitch, perhaps the defense that comes along with the pitching position. But it was just to me that was the most exciting part of pitching, is you were in it. It was you were relied upon, and kind of the pressure that goes with it was so to your point, it's like you really have to put your game face on and really bear down, be into it, be like kind of focus in on that task at hand, where in the in the infield, I never played outfield, but in the infield it was I found it a little more lackadaisical. Like it's you kind of can mentally zone out between pitches. You're just kind of you're shooting the shit with when I was playing first, whoever was playing second, you're talking to them about what's going on after, like just kind of and I'm sure when Donnie and Hank and Billy listen to this, they'll roll their eyes. They're like, and that's why you were never a day-to-day starter, because you weren't focused. But it was it was just kind of that mentality of you could kind of zone in and out in position play, but pitching, that's what I enjoyed about it. It was like it's on you, it's on your shoulders, and hopefully you don't cave under that pressure.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, first base is a really social position, even with the opposition.
Yeah.
Right? You get a runner on first, and typically, not that I ever got to go to first base or be on first, but teammates would talk about, that guy's a great guy at first or whatever, right? Because you're not, typically it's never the first baseman that start problems between teams. They don't really like yap it back and forth. They're pretty laid back and easygoing type, and have a certain respect for the opposition because you're right beside them a lot of the time.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
It's the pitchers that are generally the problem. And,
that's right. Well, it's that mentality difference, right? Of what you need mentally on the mound versus first base, for sure.
Do you remember what you felt? Do you remember when they told you made the team and how it felt to get a uniform? And
yeah, it was awesome. It was like I said, I grew up in that environment, within our house, very sports minded, loved the locker room, loved being with the boys on the different, hockey teams and, baseball teams in the clubhouse and dugouts and those type of things. And I just craved that, that team environment. And when I found out, I was gonna play on this team, or have a spot on this team, it was great. It was just really this feeling of like, an identity. Like it was like, this is, this is me. It's, you're gonna have to do the school, you're gonna have to, gut it out through the labs and the homework and, what have you. Of course, the reason you're at university, and, the social scene at McMaster, at McKay Hall at McMaster, it's, same as anywhere else. Everyone wants to be in the party and have fun. But, it was really, I remember that feeling of, what, I get to do this. I get to continue to be an athlete, and, be a part of the boys and hang out. And it was just, we got our unis, got I think we had a variety of uniforms. I remember there being different types of uniforms, different materials. Like it wasn't like, it just I vaguely remember that. I had number 40, 43, just some odd number. But I had never had or I guess I just got one the year before, but a baseball shell, like the shell, like the you know what I'm talking about, of course, right? And so, like, to me, that I remember getting a shell, and I remember we got T-shirts, McMaster baseball T-shirts, and I just remember those two things being the coolest. Like, I just, we didn't have that growing up. We didn't, it was, you might have had matching uniforms, you might have had, like playing out, in the dust fields of, Lucan and Exeter and those type of things. It's like, to me, those two things were, as silly as it sounds, kind of really big deals. Like, this is a real baseball team, and I'm going to be a part of it. And I remember being pretty proud of myself for,
Yeah,
making it.
I've heard that reflection from a lot of people. Like sometimes it's the belt, right? You get a matching belt, and
Yeah,
they would have
yeah,
played in organizations that didn't have that, or
yeah,
in our case, we banned stirrups, so you would get blue soccer socks
yeah,
and like all those things kind of make a difference, and it makes it
yeah,
feel like it's next level.
absolutely.
Um, so we get into the season, obviously, and you're on a team that's been very good right from day one that it's come on the
Mm.
field. But some great veterans in that mix, right? And people
Yeah.
you're probably learning from. So, talk to me a little bit about your memories of the season. Did you step into one during the season and crank it out of, I don't know, Guelph? Or I'm going to assume that the game,
Yeah,
uh, do you have any memories of the season? And they can be silly, they can be
yeah,
meaningful to you,
yeah.
those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think the biggest probably the biggest memory was just the guys, like, just watching, and getting to interact and play with, that just unbelievable all-star lineup, all-star on the field, all-star off the field lineup of guys that it was incredible. Like, there's I remember distinctly, feeling, or bookmarking perhaps, that I need to take note of how these guys are carrying themselves. Like, we're peers, we're teammates, but they're really, in a way, role models as well. That I just had the, guys like Robbie Pino and Cooper and Reese and Doug Lunny and, Brad Arms and um I'm trying to think, Jeff Aiken ran into, who else was on there? It's just I'm probably missing a bunch of names, but just really, like, looking at the way these guys carried themselves, the way they were leaders, the way they approached practice, the way they approached the game, the kind of the interpersonal relationships, where you've got a guy like Billy Newton, obviously coaching, yet he's one of the guys. Like, he obviously just, moved from being player to coach. You've got, just passionate, baseball guys, and Donnie Graves and Henry, that you're just, listening to. And yeah, it's not every day and very apparent, but I just remember hanging on the words and hanging on the actions of this team in '97, and these coaches that I was introduced to. And like I said, just knowing that this is special, and I'm pretty lucky to be a part of it. Like, in terms of playing time, and day in and day out, I think I pitched a few innings, got some reps at first base here and there. And it was really just kind of, filling some opportunity, getting some playing time, probably in some of the bigger blowout games and those type of things. Came in with an awesome class, like, Brett Gibson, had the opportunity and like unbelievably successful immediately, pitching some big games. Scotty Hughes came in and just, what an all-star lineup of an infield to begin with. And, he's our go-to guy in the Nationals playing first base, and, Fortuna and Grilli and, my crew, kind of coming in with, and just, kind of finding my role or finding my spot, knowing where I was at in my baseball journey, but just, kind of taking it all in. Really, it was awesome.
It's pretty good too when you come into first year of university to have a built-in support system of friends and people.
Yeah.
Like we told a little story on a Brock one of everyone was taking the same course, so they recycled an essay, which is probably not great to admit in
Sure.
But those guys have their degrees now, so they don't have to worry about them taking it back. But they recycled an essay through, I think, 3 or 4 series of freshmen. Because the older guys will always support the younger guys, because that's the kind of the circle of life. So let's talk a bit about some of the your interactions with. Did Henry Romanowski attempt to become your pitching coach? So this is funny to me, right?
It was. I remember him telling me, and it might have been my second year or third year, and I remember him telling me, and we were at this park, the Alexandra Park, or whatever it was called, and we were over working on the mound and throwing bullpens and whatever we had to do. And I remember him coming out to me and just, Henry, as we all know, is a gruff guy, and he's like, Dusky. He goes, you might be a big kid, right? Big kid. And, this big guy. And he goes, but when you're out in this mound, you look like the smallest, weakest kid on the field, the way you carry yourself and the way the way you go about your pitching. And it's, I'll perhaps show the boys in September at the big event. You'll see the old windup of old, but it was like just the most unconventional, unorthodox, never trained, never showing how to do anything. I was basically a pitcher that threw the ball. Like I was a thrower, not a mechanical pitcher, and that makes sense to you. And so Henry had all of these ideas on how I should be moving my legs and moving my arms and moving whatever. And, I probably bounced, 7 million balls in off, Fortuna's, face and chest that practice. And I think finally he just kind of threw his hands up and he's like, whatever. He's like, just keep doing what you're doing. This is it. My curveball was, non-existent. I had this, we called it the special pitch, which it didn't even have a name for it. It was like probably a knuckle curve is what it'd be called nowadays. And, just something off speed. I couldn't throw a change up, save my life. And I was the guy that would come in and just pound fastball after fastball after fastball and hit spots. And, you need it over the inside, the outside. You got to put one in somebody's ear. Like that's no problem at all. And it was just kind of, like I said, really kind of rough and, more athletic than a baseball player. But it was it was fun. It was fun kind of, me trying to learn and discover myself, but getting an earful of the Hanker every chance as well.
I always classify your coaching staff as the statesman, because Donnie was kind of like a statesman.
Mm-hmm.
He's very program oriented, and then it's kind of like Hank's kind of a baseball savant. He's kind of very eccentric and all over the place, but he really knows his stuff.
100%. Absolutely.
We had a slightly more standard operation at Brock where it was very very compartmentalized. There was a pitching coach, there was a hitting coach. So it was so of that, let's talk about rivalries and, what you remember of the teams that you were playing specifically. Brock and Mac are like cats and dogs, and it's the reverse of what you would think. The funny thing is, as I do more of these, the McMaster group were loose. You guys
Yeah,
were kind of like a
100%.
gang of pirates,
Yeah, yeah,
and Brock was very corporate, like very systematic. It was very precise. You know, it was hard to play there because if you had long hair, you couldn't play. If you had facial
yeah,
hair, you couldn't
yeah.
play. Like that, those kinds of things. But tell me about some of the rivalries. I mean, Brock's an obvious one, but there's other ones that I'm sure you remember.
Yeah. Brock for sure, and of course, and you're spot on that. That was always my impression. Like, Brock was like, this mechanical institution of like very, very, I would use the word rigid. Like, you could tell there was a bona fide structure in place, and I used to be, blown away, and it probably suited me, perfectly in McMaster that, listen, we'd be out to 2, 3, 4 in the morning, and just ragtag throwing together, finding people, and funny story about untaping Scotty Hughes one morning because he was all taped up from his buddies for his birthday the night before, so we had to unravel him and get him in the car to a game, and so really, like, really just kind of loose, and like you said, loose and ready to go. But I think we had some great battles with Western, with UWO. They were a solid team that was continuing to develop, over my 4 years there. I think maybe in '97 they were a little bit nascent, a little bit in their infancy, but I remember a lot of really good battles with Western. And then another one that comes to mind was Laurier. I remember playing Laurier, and I remember them having, us having some really solid games against Laurier, and it just being, maybe not rivalry level, but I remember there was like a little bit of a buzz, when we would come across Laurier in the road to the playoffs, or, kind of season end when, things were important or things were on the line. And, they had a couple, and I don't recall the names, but I just remember they had a couple kids that could throw and a couple kids that could, just blast the ball. And so yeah, a lot of, when I reflect back, Brock, and then some battles with Laurier, battles with Western, and then kind of come across the other teams on the other side, U of T, and what have you. But yeah.
That's great. Tell me about winning a national championship in your first year. What was that like?
It was awesome. Like, it was just, how do you describe it other than it was awesome? Like, it was, you probably describe, like, just having, kind of a front row seat to this magical show that McMaster had on the field. And like I said, just trying to do whatever I could to be a part of it, be impactful on it. Certainly didn't have a lot of playing time. Got in with the boys, tried to keep it loose. The very set tone and leadership, on the field and off the field. And it was just kind of watching it all unfold. And, like, you go to playoffs, and you got, guys throwing, Lonnie's throwing a no hitter, and, the playoffs. Like, it's like, this is just watching this spectacle, unfold. But, trying to keep it loose, and, just really trying to, find a way to be a part of it and impactful. And I think, that might have been the season where, like, you're just learning, and trying to, trying to, grow your game, even though you might not be out there, fielding the last hit, or making the last outs.
That's a special, it's obviously a special
Certainly.
moment. I think a lot of your teammates have reflected on it, as is, Donnie. And,
Mm.
so tell me how you wrap up your McMaster career and what that leads to in terms of the direction you're going with your life.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was, just, obviously it's winding down. Like, it's, I stayed in Hamilton. I came home after my first year. I stayed in Hamilton kind of year, 2 through 4. So I was playing with Gibson and Brantford. Played kind of the junior circuit. Played intercounty down in Brantford with Gibby on, I guess it would be the 2000, and then the 2001 season. So was kind of still, pursuing this it really invigorated passion now for baseball. I mentioned at the start of this that it was something I did on the side when I, was kind of entering or getting ready to go to McMaster, and really by the end of it and going through the McMaster, baseball system, by the time I was done at McMaster, I was a baseball player. This was, I had kind of matured through this process. And so played a little bit in Brantford. Of course it's time you got to start thinking about jobs and thinking about, what comes next. And, as life's going to come at you now. So, played one more summer after I graduated in 2001, in Brantford. So kind of, did the IBL tour, and, moved back to Lucan, and then ultimately, relocated down to Connecticut for work. And, um, same thing, where didn't know how, didn't know where, but knew I was going to want to be on a team. So when I relocated to Connecticut, packed up my hockey gear. Of course, there's going to be a men's league team somewhere down in New England. I have no idea where it is or what it is. And, now I'm packing up my baseball gear, and I brought my baseball gear down, and, started my career, working as a geologist for a consulting firm. Worked with this guy, I should say, a guy named Ray, and, got talking, and, Ray had played some baseball, and there was this, Twilight, it was called the Hartford Twilight League, in and around, Hartford, which was, kind of a woodbat college summer league slash senior league. It wasn't, just college kids or just seniors. It was kind of this mix. And, so, went out and, threw a bullpen. And, luckily my, pitching had come along far enough that I didn't have to hit that home run on that first pitch and, disappoint people thereafter. But, went out and threw a bullpen for this team in South Windsor, Connecticut, and, called Mr. G's, and was, yeah, ended up continuing to play for, I think played maybe 2 or 3 years. My girlfriend at the time, wife now, Jacqueline, moved down. She's a nurse, in Manchester, Connecticut. And, as life goes and two people move in together, you get married, you start having kids. And that's, so, as kids, and, my oldest daughter, Madeline, came along, baseball had to kind of, taking off for practice 3 times a week while you got a crying baby at home isn't really gonna be successful. And, you kind of tailed off that way. But, that was something I can absolutely say is, like I said, when I left McMaster, I felt like a baseball player. And, it gave me an opportunity, and, to kind of continue that on in Hartford, and really, as we were putting roots down and, making friends and integrating into the community, it was something that I could lean on and set me up.
Do you have any trepidation of moving to the States? I mean, Canadians have, I think, um, a poor understanding of the United States. I think
Sure.
we see a lot
Yeah.
of it in the media, but
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time there, and, really, it's just, very friendly, welcoming place generally. And,
Yeah.
did you have, tell me a bit about that transition of being a Canadian and, eventually moving
Yeah.
your girlfriend down and starting a family there?
Yeah. So I was trying to figure out what to do, right? So, here I am. I'm from Lucan, the metropolis of 1,500 people. I've got my, armed with this, geology, georesources specialized degree now from this fantastic university. And, so I moved home. I moved home after that last year, and, playing baseball in Brantford. And, um, trying to figure out, what are you going to do? Like, there's not a lot, as you can imagine, kind of mining geology jobs going on in Lucan. So I was working for this, conservation authority, and, started thinking about applying to, consulting firms. And so the thing that became apparent to me at the time, and this is, of course, early 2000s, is all of these jobs were 50%, 75% travel, and the travel was to the US. The regulatory environment in the US was just, far more advanced than Canada at the time. And, so, it was just kind of this decision of, I don't want to be on the road all the time like that. I just don't want to, live my life in a hotel, as I sit here in a hotel now for, but, live my life in a hotel. So I'm just gonna move. And I was probably, looking back, it was probably kind of a, wild, crazy decision at the time. But you're 21. I got bulletproof, and I can kind of take on anything. And so figured out the visa process. I'm a dual citizen now, but at the time it was, you had to get a visa, and kind of navigated that and moved down. And to your point, it's where we live. Probably probably everywhere, I would suspect it's really very similar to Canada. Like, it's there's not a lot that's different. There's our community of people is just as friendly and just as nice as a community of people back home. Do you come across the odd dink and asshole? Of course you do. And I could point out seven back in the London area as well, type thing. You know what I mean? Like so it's really uh it was really kind of a non-issue. Probably went into it kind of, wide-eyed. Like I said, Jacqueline moved down. We had this grandiose plan. We're gonna live in the States for 3 years and, make some American dollars and move back home. And, 23 years later, we've got we've got a daughter in university, another daughter, moving to university next year. My son's in a boarding school playing hockey, and it's of course we're here, and we set it up, and it's it's been fantastic. Just a great kind of opportunity and adventures, right?
It's great. Before we jump into hockey, because that's part of your continuing story.
Sure.
Given your proximity to both Boston and New York,
Yeah.
have you been to the baseball parks? I mean,
100%. Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
So
yeah,
what was
100%.
your first?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to Fenway. I've been there a few times.
Yep.
Tell me about what you thought of going to Fenway Park.
It's awesome. Fenway's just it's just the atmosphere there is awesome. It's my first game I went to was actually right when I first moved down. So, moved down, crashed on the couch of one of my sister's roommates from Guelph, from college, for the first month. And, while I was, finding an apartment. And so I went with her boyfriend, a couple of a couple other guys that were living in their obviously their friend group. They invited me along, and didn't didn't really appreciate or know, but they're taking me to this game. The Yankees are playing the Red Sox. We're going to go to Fenway. Doesn't really impart anything too special on me, other than we're going to Fenway. I've never been to Fenway. So we go up, and having that first interaction of sitting out in right field in the bleachers of this massively heated rivalry between the Yankees and the Red Sox, and enjoying that day, and the beers and the sun, and hanging out there as this I really probably hadn't experienced something like that before. This really raucous crowd of, like, just, as much as I thought, going to McMaster and joining that team, and, realizing how into baseball this group of guys, mostly from around the Toronto area, is, it's a complete next level in the US, as you can imagine. And, I realized that with my Twilight League team that I was playing on. Like, these guys I'm playing with live and die baseball. We had a bunch of, like, Division I guys playing on that team. And then you go into Boston, and now obviously you're in the Mecca, and what this means, this Red Sox Yankees rivalry. It was yeah, I'll never forget that first trip to Fenway. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's so deceptive too. Fenway doesn't look like much from the outside.
No, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
It's a little bit, for people who haven't been there, I highly recommend it. Boston is a beautiful city. I
Mhm.
almost got arrested at the Gardner Museum because I was shutting my phone off, and the security thought I was taking a picture. You're not allowed to take pictures in
Yeah.
the Gardner Museum. And these two big burly dudes are, like, roughing me up, like, you can't take pictures. I'm like, I'm not. I'm shutting it off. Jesus. But yeah, it's quite an environment there. Have you been to? Obviously, you have likely been to New York a few times.
Oh yeah. I go to New York all the time for work.
So were you at the old Yankee or the new Yankee Stadium?
Yeah. Been to the old stadium. Been to the new stadium. The new stadium is awesome, just from the amenities and, like, the layout, and it's just quite the facility is the terminology I would use. The old stadium is is nostalgia, of course, right? Back when that was, around and in play. You go there and it's just that, I've always been, baseball, but probably life-wise, otherwise, kind of a history buff and really into history and really into, kind of the stories that, facilities or people or, times tell, and just, going in, like, Fenway, of course, is, way up there in that as well. And Yankee Stadium, awesome. You go in there and it's just history was made there, right? And you're just, taking it all in, watching it. I remember sitting way up behind center field, or pardon me, behind the plate up in the, one of the upper decks, and just the view, and just really, really looking around and taking it all in. And yeah, I've had the opportunity to go, uh I travel around a lot with my son for his hockey, and some of the summer events, we always make it a point. We try to visit a baseball stadium. So we go, and we've been to Wrigley, we've been to Minnesota, Philly, we've been to parks in Florida, we've been, we kind of hit them up Washington as we go around. And it's really, to me, become one of those events where, you take in these stadiums, and just like, I have a lot of fond memories of my father and me playing baseball growing up. That's something that, try to impart on, me and my son doing the tour. So
That's super cool. Monument Park in Yankee Stadium is something else,
yeah,
and it just, history kind of flows, and I'm similar to you in that way. Like, I've been to, obviously, to Yankee Stadium a few times, and City Field where the Mets play doesn't have that
no,
same
right,
feel.
right.
But when you're in New York, you can't like I see Mulberry Street and I think of mob history, and just
Yep.
it's all that stuff. So that's, I think it must be a super cool area to live in and then be
Yeah.
able to go home from, because New York can be overwhelming at times.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
It's
Yeah.
I really like the Sohos and the Greenwich Villages, but to me, Times Square is just, you feel like you're on another planet. It's a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. My work takes me into Midtown. Like I said, probably once a month, I'll spend 2 or 3 nights down in Manhattan, down in Times Square, Midtown District. It's
yeah,
where, a lot of our clients are. And, I love it. I love the energy. I love the vibe. It's, there's something always happening, the energy there. But, it's, yeah, it's nice to, get out of there and kind of refresh and hang out and go back to I live out in the country. Jacqueline and I have a, great place out in the country, and kind of northeast Connecticut, which is quiet, surrounded by fields, and perhaps a, homage back to my life in Lucan, where we got a massive cattle farm down the road, and what have you. But yeah, there's definitely an energy and vibe in the cities for sure.
it's amazing. Tell me a little bit about your continuing involvement with hockey.
Yeah,
Obviously, and how you're applying maybe some of what you learned from a coaching perspective.
yeah.
I don't see you probably taking a player aside and going, "You're really big," and you look like the smallest, weakest person on the ice there. But
That's right. That's right.
yeah, tell me a little bit about this.
Yeah. It's kind of been a great, great adventure, I'll call it. And I spent a lot of time playing hockey, of course, growing up, moved to the US. New England is pretty, pretty hockey centric, or especially around the Boston area. Connecticut, a little bit less so. But uh, so I mentioned, my son's, big into hockey. His name's Nolan, and so as Nolan was, kind of getting started on, on his skates, and on his feet, had the opportunity to, help coach and help, kind of lay out the game plan and of development and practices, and what have you. Of course, like, we have this guy from Canada here helping out the team, and so had a lot of fun with that. And kind of, recruit some of the other fathers that have kids there, and we formed town teams, and what have you. So practicing and coaching, and kind of, leading this team through, kind of the younger ages of youth hockey, started kind of doing training on the side as well. So, I would have people reach out and, hey, can you work with my son or daughter on their skating or some sort of skill work or what have you. And so yeah, I did that for a little bit, and then started kind of getting more and more requests for that. And at the same time, I was training my son and some of his teammates or otherwise kids in the area as well. So ended up 11 10, 11 years ago, started my own business on kind of a on the side, so to speak, where provide training, and we have summer camps and more individual or small group training during the year as well. So I've been training kids kind of at night or on weekends, and then of course some of the summer programs where uh continued on to that. So kind of stepped aside from coaching. My son was moving on to some higher level, bigger teams, and kind of forming his own path, and still did some summer coaching, but kind of focused in on the training aspects of it. And really, I can certainly say that probably as just as influential, if not more so, from the coaching aspect, kind of taking what I learned watching some of the baseball activities at McMaster, as silly as that says, that is, and how that translates into hockey training, but breaking down those building blocks and watching what guys like Donnie, what guys like Hank did, what guys like Billy Newton did on, like, baseball, as is very finicky, very fundamental, very repeated movements, very repeated um skill sets. And hockey is very similar, even though the sports look very different on the TV and when you watch them. Learning how to skate, learning how to build down the building blocks of foundational pieces such as body movements and edges, and hand positioning and body positioning to reach your full potential. It's taking the hockey knowledge and the skills and what have you I had growing up, but applying some of those teaching mechanisms that I learned, that I was, put into and then learned by watching, some of the coaches and guys in McMaster. It's been fun. I've had a blast with it, from that end of it. And then, my son's continued to, play at a high level, and, all the adventures that go with that, and, chasing him, kind of all over the country, and watching his, kind of successes and growth and development opportunities as he goes through the up and downs of, any high level athlete. You have high moments and low moments, and, working with him, and, really at this point in time, just, watching him and enjoying, kind of where he's at and how he's, developed the determination to push himself as well. And it's just, that's obviously, that's across the board, as, proud parents. We like, enjoying all of our kids' successes and what have you. But yeah, it's been an adventure in hockey, and very similar with my daughters and their soccer. So
Well, we all know, being a hockey parent, and I've been there. Newton's daughter and
yeah,
my daughter were a defense pair.
yeah, okay,
There's one thing that is common with all hockey parents. We all understand what it's like to get to an arena really early. It's super freaking cold out
yeah,
there, and you're just dying for, up north, mostly it's Tim Hortons. I'm not
yeah,
100% sure whether they're carrying Tim's or whether it's Duncan country in Massachusetts, but or
yeah,
sorry, in Connecticut. But
yeah, yeah,
you know,
definitely a Duncan area. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So it's,
yeah,
like, you have the weirdest conversations when it's like super early. You're wiping the sleep out of your eyes because you've had to get your kid up, and you're in a freezing cold arena waiting for the
yeah,
lights to come on and a ref to show up and all that kind of
yeah,
stuff. It is a fun, unique world being a hockey parent. So I'm sure you've
yeah,
had,
mm,
it feels like people let their guard down sometimes, just with
sure.
people that are with the team, and you get these unique relationships that come out of it. And yeah, that must be a ton of fun too.
Yeah, it's fun, and it's fun, and you meet a lot of great people, and a lot of our family friends kind of spawned from a hockey environment. And it's funny, Jacqueline and I have sometimes reflected on, it's my daughters both played, played pretty high level soccer as well. My oldest is playing Division 3 soccer at Lesley University in Cambridge, and we did the circuit with her, similar to what we've done with Nolan. And it's just, the soccer side and the hockey side is just this little, I don't know if it's just you're in the rink, or it's just a different, kind of camaraderie, I think, with the parents, or, you seem to be juggling a little bit more. And, following Maddie and Megan around, with their soccer has been, a similar type of experience as well, where, instead of grabbing the Duncan and sitting in a cold rink, you often find yourself sitting on a cold field someplace in New England, and it could be a morning tournament or a late evening game, but
It
lot of
also
excitement and great moments.
it is. I think the thing with soccer, because my younger daughter played both, and then chose soccer ultimately, is what she's playing in university. There is also more of a laid back element, right? Because you do get the days where you have really great weather, and it's just you're kind
Right.
of like in the sun. It's kind of like Hakuna Matata. Just the world is great. I think one of the things that is different is there's an intensity difference. Hockey, there's always going to be some form of physical altercation between the teams.
Yeah.
And that gets the parents fired up a lot.
100%. Yeah.
It's not that soccer parents don't, but I think in general there's less of, it gets less directed it gets all directed at the referee in soccer, as opposed to in similar in baseball too, with rare exception, it's all on the umpire or on the referee. And in hockey, sometimes the other team gets you going, because they're chippy or they're intense or whatever. So that's been kind of fun. Listen, in 2000 I believe it's 2018, you guys got inducted into the McMaster Hall of Fame as a team.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that experience and what that was. Was it a neat experience? Was it cool to get caught up? Were you a part of it? All those kinds of things.
Yeah. It was, I feel like a repeated record here, but it was awesome. Like it was awesome. It was, I remember getting the notice. I think we got an email out. Pretty sure my good buddy Gibby gave me a call. He's like, "Hey, did you get this? Like, this is this is cool." And it was just really cool, and it was really you asked, like, were you a part of it? And it was like one of those things where that came through, and like that was immediately circled on the calendar. Let the family know, like, we need to go do this. This is, we need to be here for this. This is super important on many levels. And to go back and just see the guys, and just really kind of bring full circle the reflection of like how important those years were on my life, and how important those relationships were. And to be able to, on one way, show off my family to, my friends and teammates, and just, to be able to bring them, and then, and, in the other direction, to be able to show off a little bit about, my past and McMaster to my family, in that direction as well. And, just to go up, it was an awesome weekend. Like, went up, walked around campus, walked around, just whatever, like, just, toured campus, showed the kids where, this is where Dad lived, McKay Hall, a couple light touch stories on some of the adventures, of course. And, walking through the arches into the common. And, we had lunch at the Snooty Fox down in Westdale. And, of course, Jacqueline dropped me off at the Snooty Fox later that night, which, I Ubered home, or taxied, of course, right? But it was, kind of the tale of two worlds at that place. But it was awesome. And then just, really just kind of the honor of being inducted with, into the Hall of Fame, and with that class. And just, just the pride of, like, what, I was a part of this, and I was a part of it with these guys. And just kind of on a personal note, like I said, I felt I was very lucky to be a part of that with that crew of players and people. And just to have that solidified, and to know that that's there, it's pretty special, and it's pretty awesome experience.
I feel bad because 7 years later or 6 years later, we're knocking on the door, and this time we're going to make you get into a uniform and put on some
Yeah,
sort of baseball display. I keep saying to
of course.
everybody,
Yeah.
we'll be sponsored by St. John's Ambulance, and I feel bad for the Mac guys because they've got to come to Community Park at St. Catharines, which is a little bit of a house of horrors for
Yeah, there you go.
it's but it brings me to one of the reasons we're doing this is
Yeah.
is a teammate that you would have had the opportunity to play with, Brad Reeson.
Yeah.
Brad, a great educator and a great teacher.
Yep.
And one of the most prepared and professional people I know. Like, he just monitored his diet from his early 20s and all that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, we lost him, and to colon cancer, which is gives us a little bit of opportunity to kind of make sure that his scholarship continues on and they continue supporting freshman baseball players. But there's also a story and a narrative around Brad. He kind of is a great poster child for what a student athlete should look and handle themselves like.
100%. Yeah.
Tell me what it was like having Brad as a teammate.
Yeah, it was, like I said, and I think he was one of the first names I mentioned early on of like my impressions of those first couple practices. And, just one of those guys that you knew immediately when you meet him, this guy's special. I don't know what it is, why it is. I'm sure I'm going to learn more, but that immediate first impression, with Brad and somebody like Brad is just there's something special about this individual, and I should pay attention to what's going on here. And the way Brad carried himself, the way Brad prepared himself for the games, the little bit of a kind of a the word that's popping in my head right now is kind of zany, a little bit of a zany personality, kind of off the field, and just kind of, you talk about being loose, and the ultimate loose guy that can be with the boys, always doing something, loose, silly, like just something out of the blue, like what is Brad doing right now? And you're just kind of taking things in, and just you just notice this activity going on, and it's recent, and the but then the ability for him to I'll say kind of flick that switch and dial in and just be the fiercest competitors on the field, and deliver constantly and consistently, like the one of the highest levels of baseball that I experienced, was, like I said, this guy, he was remarkable, and it was somebody that you just had to, you know, uh, very appreciative that had the opportunity to experience him, and have a relationship with him as a teammate. It's he was quite a guy.
Yeah, it's a couple things that I'll point out. Obviously, I think I spent a lot of time with Brad, but he would have this little glint in his eye, and you kind of knew that he was up to no good. He would have that little smile, but it was like, so I used to call him Dennis the Menace all the time. I'm like, what are you doing? Because I'm Mr. Wilson. I'm going to kick your ass. Because he would do these, ridiculous things to just take the edge off of people. And, so I think that's amazing. But he was also a really kind of a gentle soul. Like, I never knew Brad for all of his talent. He was very talented. His hand-eye coordination was next level. But I never knew him to be a mean-spirited person at all. I never saw him do anything mean. He was always good to rookies. Really a good teammate from that perspective. And I think that probably permeated your entire group there, where the veteran guys, in a McMaster sense, always looked to me like they made sure that the young guys were supported and felt like they took as much of the intimidation factor of being a young guy like you would have been walking onto a team like that, and just try to make you feel like one of the guys. And that's a really important quality that people don't understand. We didn't always have that at Brock. There's been times where there's been a hard line between generation waves of players, as it were. I think you guys did a really good job of having a seamless wave, if that makes any sense. And Brad was a big part of that.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And it was, talk about reaping the benefits of being, like I said, having the opportunity and the benefits of being integrated and, a teammate of, this just unbelievably high quality of people, how they carried themselves, how you saw them on campus. They were, very successful, in the classroom, very successful on the field. Their approach, their willingness to help and mentor was, really, really, an impression. And, I think that permeated down, from the coaching as well. Like it's, Donnie Graves, became, very much an influential and, kind of father figure type person to myself during my time there, listening and, kind of hanging on the words of, Hank. And, you knew when, Hank or Bill Newton talked. Bill was kind of this quasi, like, I don't know if we're going to be buddies and go crush beers, or, then all of a sudden he was pretty stern at practices and hard. So, I kind of had this quasi role, but, you just really saw that, those cultural pieces of leadership and, mentorship, permeate right through the organization. And, really all I can say about it on my end is I was just a massive beneficiary of it. And, kind of formed a lot of, kind of my viewpoints on, path forward in my life just from being a part of it.
It's great to hear. Adam, let me ask you a, kind of an obtuse question, but one
Sure.
that makes some sense. What is it that you want to, you seem to have, created a really good life for you and your family.
Mm.
What is it that you have left on the, on your to-do list, things that you want to get accomplished?
I think I lost you there, Mike.
Yeah, I was just asking, if there's things that you want to get accomplished in life. You've seemed fairly accomplished and you've achieved a lot of things by doing some courageous pivots and making some decisions. Maybe rhyme off a few things you still want to get done.
Yeah, it's probably a timely conversation. It's, like I mentioned, Jacqueline and I were, we had our kids, probably quite young by today's standards. It was, we're, mid 40s. I've got, a second year college student. I've got a, soon to be first year college student. So, and then, my son's out of the house now. So, what's next, right? What's next? And, really, I think right now we're just kind of focused on, watching our kids succeed and, kind of, being those parents that, are trying to, prop up and give every opportunity we can, and watch them, kind of shuffle and find their way through life as they're on adventures. So that's, certainly top of mind for, Maddie, Megan, and Nolan. But, for us, I think it's just continuing the adventure. Like it's just kind of, we're both driven people. We're both very, kind of focused on, progression and continuing to evolve ourselves and continuing to evolve, where we live, how we live. And so it's, no real set goals, no real benchmarks, but just knowing that, the conversation, literally we had last week was we know our story and our journey is not going to end at the house we're currently living at in Ellington, Connecticut. It's been a fantastic place to raise the family. And, we're kind of starting to evaluate, what's next for us and, what's next. So, I do know our families will be, integrally involved, both our, immediate and, of course our, family nucleus in Connecticut. But I'm not sure, it's just, we're kind of blowing the wind a little bit that way and see what brings us next. But it'll, certainly involve family and the kids.
Well, I'm 100% sure of this. In about 6.5 months' time, 7 months' time, uh, you know, we'll have to find a thirsty camel type spot in the greater St. Catharines area.
Certainly.
And I'm sure that your teammates are really looking forward to seeing you. Do you have still ongoing friendships that you've maintained, after 30 years from the team?
Yeah, certainly. Like, first and foremost, like, absolutely Brett Gibson. Like, uh, you know, I would describe us as, somehow we, two peas in a pod, weren't in a pod, but somehow hopped in the pod together at McMaster. And, it's just a fantastic experience with him. We took over the team as the co-captains, which I don't even think was a designated role. We just made it up, ran with it. And I tried to add some, you know, I think in somewhat, and I don't want to speak for Brett, but I knew I wasn't at the level of these guys we were playing with, and I knew they were serious and they were really, and really, really the leadership on the team when we got there in '97, and just almost in kind of a funny way, just kind of made up. Well, yeah, you guys do all that serious stuff, but we're the real captains. We're gonna run, we're gonna run the bullpen and run the team. So, so that continued on, and now, like, even when we, come across emails and stuff, it's still the co-captain. So yeah, Gibby and I certainly, keep in touch, and, run into Hughes, we don't keep in touch regularly, but, run into Hughes at events or things like that. We have, kind of, obviously commingled friendships and that, where we come across each other. You know, the that's probably it, really. Like, like a lot of great relationships, and I look forward to, Jeff Aiken was sending around emails at one point in time, and always trying to get something together up in Collingwood. And it's just, as life goes, it's just so tough to bring everybody back together. So yeah, very, very much looking forward to seeing all the guys, some guys that are just slipping my mind right now, that I know when you walk into that room in St. Catharines in September, it's gonna be like, oh, hey, what's going on? And just right back at it, like 20-year-old goofballs 30 years ago, right? So
Yeah,
it's
I
looking
think
forward to it.
you sometimes need something to prompt it, right? And there's lots of
100%.
reunions and that kind of stuff, but I think the fact we're actually going to go out and play a game, and I'm not 100% sure that game will be aesthetically pleasing, but it seems appropriate for us to all be in uniform. And I think that's the way most people would have last remembered Brad, was him in his uniform and with that shell and those weird work gloves that he would use to take batting practice with. And for us, Todd is going to get a chance to be in uniform, after losing his sight in his right eye. So, like, these kinds of things are going to be super cool, I think, and
Yeah.
give us all a reason to, understand that is kind of the smoke clears from the family portion of our life, where a lot of us are building families, and now our kids are leaving the house. And
Of course.
stuff. It gives us some, I think, opportunity to really reconnect with people that we probably would have remained friends with for 30 years. So now it's just kind of like we took a little small break, and we're going to pick it back up again. So
that's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great way to describe that. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Adam, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Maybe you can send a memo to Dr. Hughes and tell him that he's going to need a haircut to fit into a cap.
That's right.
Because he's looking so West Coast. He's just got
the
beard and the long hair going.
No doubt.
And listen, we'll definitely look forward to seeing you in a little bit of time here. And good luck. Good luck with your various seasons and kids' endeavors. And we look forward to a little bit of a Lucan reunion at Community Park in St. Catharines.
Awesome, Mike. Really appreciate it. Think you're doing a great job here, and it's awesome. Really appreciate having me on.
Thanks, man.
All right.
Well, the smell